Ever wonder what the shortest book of the Bible is? It wouldn't take long to find out, especially these days when you can find lists of darn near anything on the internet. This week, I'm going to count down to the shortest book of the Bible, starting with the sixth shortest book. When we're done, you may think I've gotten it wrong, though, because the shortest book of the Bible actually has more verses than the second shortest, and it even looks a little longer than the second shortest book in English. But verses vary in length, and English translations don't always coincide in the number of words with the ancient languages of Hebrew and Koine Greek, the predominant languages of the Bible. Sometimes English translations just take more or less words than the original languages. I'll be going by word count in the original languages, though. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Without any further introduction, let's begin. Weighing in at 659 words spread over 3 chapters and 46 verses is the Epistle of Paul to Titus. I've actually touched on this book before, but it never hurts to go back over familiar ground. Now, unlike most other Pauline letters, this one is written to a single individual, rather than to an entire congregation. It contains practical advice to a younger colleague from a mentor and guide. Titus has been assigned to work in Crete, a place which, shall we say, did not enjoy the best reputation in the ancient world. They had a reputation for being liars. In fact, in this letter, Paul quotes a philosopher from Crete from around 600 BC who famously said, "Cretans are always liars, vicious brutes, lazy gluttons." Not a very promising group with whom to do Christian ministry. But evangelizing the Cretans was the task for Titus, and the author of this letter gives him some very practical advice. Now, what's absent from this letter is any of the stuff we've come to expect from Paul, the usual things about the content of the gospel. But then again, since the writer is addressing one of his subordinates, he could probably assume that Titus knew the substance of the faith and wouldn't have to teach it to him here in his letter. Paul says, "I left you behind in Crete for this reason, so that you should put in order what remained to be done, and should appoint elders in every town as I directed you." Establishing a church on Crete meant training leaders who could carry on the work of the church even after Titus moved on. Paul's advice centers on training church leaders and members how to behave in a way that would bring credit to the church. To summarize his advice, Titus was to train them to live modest lives, being model citizens. In the reading for today, Paul says, "I desire that you insist on these things, so that those who have come to believe in God may be careful to devote themselves to good works. These things are excellent and profitable to everyone. But avoid stupid controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless. Live life as model citizens and avoid getting drawn into what Paul considered stupid controversies." Obviously, there are ideas and principles worth arguing about in life. Paul's not talking about those, however. In the church, this might include things like the divinity of Jesus Christ, the idea that we are saved not by merit but by grace, things like that. Those are worth arguing about. The problem is, some people just like to argue and will pick a fight over just about anything. The result of these kinds of petty arguments is polarization, when what is needed in the church is unity. I think the church today still needs to hear this message, for we too, all too often, fight over inconsequential things, carpet colors, paint colors, those sorts of things. They may seem like the most important thing in the world at the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, they are simply not worth dividing the church over. For the church's witness not only depends on unity, the substance of the church's witness is the ministry of reconciliation. Engaging in stupid controversies not only hurts the church, it undermines the church's very witness to the gospel itself. The epistle to Titus may be a short book, but do not confuse its brevity with its importance. Its message is important for every generation in the church. Tomorrow, number 5 in our countdown of the shortest books of the Bible. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.